In this video, I will show you 10 best traps in the Italian opening that you can use to trick your opponents and win more games. So let's move on to our first trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. Here you play knight c3, knight f6, you go d3, black goes t6, opening up the bishop, and here you go bishop g5, black goes h6, kicking your bishop. You take this knight, and after queen takes, you play knight e5, attacking the queen and also threatening a fork on c7. So he goes queen d8, and after that you play c3, preparing d4, bishop e6, trying to take this knight. But here you just play d4, takes, and then bishop moves back. And here you just take this knight, and after pawn takes, you can play d5, winning one of black's minor pieces. And even though here, if he plays bishop takes d5, then you can play e takes d5, and both of his pieces are under attack. And after bishop b4 check, you can just move the king out of the way, knight moves to safety, and then you can just play queen to a4 check and take this bishop. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, you play c3, d6, you play d4, takes, and here black goes bishop e4 check. And here you play this crazy looking move, king f1. Black goes knight f6, developing his knight. And here you go d5, attacking his knight. Knight e5, centralizing his knight. Then you can just take this knight, and after black recaptures, you can play queen to a4 check, and this bishop is lost. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, you play c3, d6, you play d4, takes, bishop b4 check, you play king f1, and here black goes bishop d7. You play queen b3, targeting f7 and also threatening to push d5, which will undefend the bishop. So he goes bishop a5, and here you go bishop takes f7. Here, king to e7 is not a good option because after bishop g5, let's say black goes knight f6, then after e5, black is completely lost. So here, you have to go king to f8. Then you just take this knight with the bishop, rook takes, and then you go knight g5, threatening waiting one. So he goes queen to e7, then you go knight takes h7 check, and after king moves, you can just take his rook, and after queen to f8, queen takes f8 is a checkmate. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, c3, black goes knight f6, d4, takes, and here black goes bishop b4 check, knight c3, black goes knight takes e4, you castle here, and after bishop takes c3, you go d5, knight e5, hits the bishop. Here you just take the bishop, and after knight takes c4, you go queen to d4, hitting both these knights. Black goes knight e6, defending his knight, which is a blunder because after queen takes g7, attacking the rook, rook f8, and then you go rook to e1 check. He has to block with the queen, and then you can just play rook takes e7 check, king takes, and then you go bishop g5 check, king d8, pawn move. Then you go rook e1 check, knight blocks, and then you can just take this knight, and after knight to e5, you can just take this knight with the rook, and it's a checkmate. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, you play b4. This is the a1's gambit. Bishop takes, then you go c3, bishop a5, you play d4, attacking the center, e takes d4, and you castle here. Black goes d takes c3, and here you go queen to b3, targeting f7, queen f6, defends. Then you go e5, and here black goes knight takes e5. You play rook e1, black goes d6, defending the knight. But here you just play bishop to g5, attacking the queen, and after queen moves, you can play knight takes e5, and after d takes e5, you can go rook takes e5 check. Blocking with the knight is not a good idea because you can just take it. So he goes king to f8, but then you can just play queen to a3 check, queen d6 only move, and here you can just play rook to d5, and black is completely lost. If he takes the queen, then it's a mate in 1 with rook to d8, and here if he goes something like knight f6, then you can just take the queen, and even though he tries queen to b4, then you can just play rook to d8 checkmate. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4 e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, you play b4, black takes, and then you go c3, bishop c5, you play d4, black takes, and then you castle here. Black goes d6, opening up his bishop. You play c takes d4, hitting the bishop, bishop b6, you play d5, and here, instead of moving this knight, black goes queen to f6, attacking your rook. But here you just don't care and play d takes c6. Black takes your rook. You play bishop takes f7 check, sacrificing the bishop. Here, if he doesn't take and play king to f8, then you can just take his knight. And after rook takes, you can play knight to g5, queen takes b1, and here you go queen f3 check. And after king e7, you can play queen f7 check, king d8, and then it's a checkmate after queen takes g8, king e7, queen f7 check, king d8, and then it's queen f8 checkmate. So here, you have to take the bishop, and then you go queen to b3 check. And after king f8, you can play this amazing move, bishop to b2, and his queen is trapped. Even though here he plays bishop e6, trying to counter-attack your queen, you can just shock him with c takes b7, sacrificing the queen. And after rook b8, you can just take this bishop, and after queen takes b2, you can just play queen to c8 check, and after rook takes, you can promote to a queen, and you are completely winning. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4 e5, knight f3, knight c6, you play bishop c4, bishop c5, you go c3, knight f6, you play d4. Here black goes bishop b6, then you can just play d takes e5, and after black takes this pawn, you can play this amazing move, queen to d5. You cannot move his knight because of queen takes f7 checkmate, so after queen to e7, you can take his knight, and you are completely winning. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4 e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, you play b4. Black takes, you play c3, bishop c5, d4, e takes d4, you castle here, and here black goes d takes c3, and here you shock him with bishop takes f7 check, king have to take, and then you go queen d5 check, and after king moves, you can take this bishop, and you are completely winning. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4 e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, black goes bishop c5, c3, knight f6, d4, e takes d4, c takes d4, black goes bishop b4 check, you play knight c3, knight takes e4, you just castle here, and here black goes knight takes c3, you take with the pawn, bishop takes c3, attacks the rook, but here you shock him with queen to b3, hitting the bishop and also attacking f7. Here the most common move is bishop takes a1, which is a blunder because after bishop takes f7, he cannot play king e7 because bishop to g5 will win the queen. So here he goes king f8, and here you go bishop g5, attacking the queen. Knight e7 on the move, and here don't take this bishop, instead just play rook to e1, and it's just completely losing for black. After something like d6, you can just take this knight, queen takes, and then you can take this queen, and you're completely winning. Let's move on to our next trap. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, here black goes d6. We play knight c3, developing his knight, bishop g4, pins this knight to the queen. And here you just go h3, black moves his bishop back, and here you shock him with knight takes e5, sacrificing the queen. If he takes your knight, then you can just take his bishop, and after he takes your bishop, you have to play queen to b5 check and then take this knight. And here, if he takes your queen, then you can just play bishop takes f7 check, king e7 only move, and then knight to d5 is a checkmate. Well, this is not the end. If you want to learn some more chess traps like these, then you can check out this left playlist. And if you want to learn some chess openings, then you can check out this right playlist. And if you don't want to miss more amazing videos like these, then don't forget to subscribe.